Diversity Talks. What is domestic violence?
Basically, it's understanding as we out here is how do you identify the signs? How should someone know that they're in an abusive relationship? Uh, Sharika, you want to start off with some things that people should watch out for?
Yeah, minimizing. I mean, most of the time, a abuser may minimize you and make you feel less than. Sexual abuse is another thing that we haven't. I don't know if we touched on it, but someone just forcing you to engage in sexual activities with them, and you may not agree with those things. Threatening behavior, a lot of isolation, like it was mentioned earlier. And it's not always physical abuse, but sometimes they may start off with just pushing you or shoving you, and then it goes into the actual punch.
Yeah, in your practice, many times we forget about the children. What would you say that we need to do to increase awareness of how children are affected by domestic violence?
Well, that's a great question. I feel that children are highly affected, mainly because children are taught by adults. We role model behaviors for children, and depending on the child, the sex of the child, the gender, whatever, the child develops an ideology of the fact that this is what is supposed to happen in life. I've seen some small little boys who learn from their parents, specifically from dad and from mom, that I am supposed to hit my woman. I'm supposed to bring force to her. Little girls learn either to be aggressive or to accept that my role is subservient. So they internalize this information and start acting it out within their childhood. A lot of times children are in school fighting, and they're getting into all sorts of trouble because of what they have witnessed. And a lot of times I'll ask parents to come out of their own mindset for a second and put themselves in the minds of a child. And it is at that time they're able to see what children go through, how they have to deal with it, and how they act it out. And it helps, at that point to be able to see that so that you don't create the same madness in the
abuse either. And I think that's a misconception that we get into, in that because of the economy being bad, people are struggling, the stress levels go up, and that causes the abuse. The abuse is caused by a misfire in behavior. The economic situation just exacerbates it. And when we talk about why don't they just leave, there's a ton of valid reasons why they stay. We know they go back 7, 8, 9 times before they ultimately leave. And every reason is valid. Seeing your list here, Joyce, all of those come into play. Love comes into play, which is a huge piece of why victims stay. Lifestyle change is a huge piece. That's why we don't always hear from the affluent communities with victims that are going through, because they don't want to give up the country club, or they don't want to give up the private schools for the kids. They'd rather take the beating. So instead of talking about why don't they stay, where I try to turn the conversation is, let's talk about safety planning. How do we get you to a safe place?
If you would like the full recording of this program, please contact us at joycesaintcyr.com. That's JoyceSaintCyr.com. And thanks for listening, and join us at Diversity Talks.